Peter Thiel has that quote, like, you want to find something that is really obvious to you, that's a secret to everyone else in the world. I don't care if no one else in the world knows that. Like, one by one, brick by brick, we're going to get the message out. And it's like Pandora's box. As the message gets out, it doesn't go back in.
Michael Brandt co-founded HVMN along with our main host, Jeffrey Wu, and he just came back from running the 2019 Boston Marathon.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here, man. Harry and I have had you on our list of like dream guests for a long time. And the reason why I say that is we always love to give listeners just a little bit of context into how we got to know the guest or the product or whatever they're doing. And so we were living in our buddy Anthony Gustin's ranch in Bastrop last November is when we moved in. And so he's got all these like crazy cool products in his house. And he's like, whatever in my house, go for it, use it, it's yours. So we opened the fridge up the first day. And we started getting on this habit. It was like a ranch path. So we would do a 3-mile run every morning. And so we see this like big clear bottle of Ketone IQ. And I think I told you I had first heard of HVMN because I listened to your co-founder Jeff's podcast with Lance Armstrong a few years ago. I thought it was one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. So I'd heard about you guys and I'd been starting to see this product more and more. So we said, well, we're low carb. This is supposed to be good. Exogenous ketones. We've heard a lot about it and we took it. So I took a shot of that, double espresso, and we were just like cooking on that first run. We were wired, and that was like the proof of concept of like, all right, there's really something to exogenous ketones. So it's cool for us to go from that first experience to now getting to know you, have you on the show, and just see everything you guys have built out the last few years. It's amazing. So just want to say congrats on all the success that you guys have had.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, I've been wanting to be on this podcast for a while as well. So it's cool to be all together. And we both know Anthony. Anthony's a legend, obviously.
He is a legend.
Entrepreneur, visionary in the overall health performance space. I think first tracks in the snow and a lot of interesting areas that we're all passionate about. So it's super cool to be here now.
Yeah. It's amazing to see how integrated you guys have gotten with the wellness community around the US, but like in Austin, it just seems like you see the Ketone IQ kind of just popping up everywhere. Like we had the HPLT event 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And we had Lat there from HVMN, and it was like one of the best events, but it was incredible just how like you guys stood out in terms of like the participation and just level, like, you know, people were taking shots before workouts and things like that. It's just cool to see the brand grow in that way.
I love it. At this point, I can't even take credit. Like I just hired people smarter than me, and we're all out here. That's all I can say.
And Lad is smart. What does he have, like 3 PhDs or something like that?
Yeah.
Like
and he's is he the data research, or what's his title? Is it research lead or something like that?
Research lead. His primary responsibility is we have this $6 million contract with the Department of Defense Special Operations Command with multiple different subtasks to it. Largest exogenous ketone research study ever done. He's the principal investigator on that, and then has become killer on content. I lost track. Like I used to have more followers than him.
Yeah.
And then one day I checked and I was like, yo, he's like double me. He's the kid, like he went from like asking me for like tips on how to like do. And then now he has like 200K followers. I was like, all right, you teach me now. Like I don't.
Totally. Well, he's like this really rare blend of a guy with a really high IQ, but really good EQ and just an amazing human being in general. And Harry was mentioning the HPLT event. So we emceed this panel on, was it like pioneering new trends in the health space? And it was him and then Wyatt, the founder of Ice Barrel. And so obviously Lat is an extremely data-centric guy. Wyatt is not. He's more so like you should intuitively know what makes your body feel good. And so both Harry and I were like, we don't really know how this panel is going to go. It's either going to be really good or they're like not going to see eye to eye. But it was probably, I thought it was maybe the best panel that we had done all day. And the reason why I say that is we actually asked Lat this question. We said, what is your perspective on like data, wearable technology, et cetera? Like, how do you balance that with this like intuitive knowledge of what makes your body feel really good? And he gave an amazing answer. And the thing that he said was, when you're metabolically unhealthy, you don't have this internal reference point for what makes you feel good. You don't understand how food impacts your body. You don't understand how sleep impacts your body. So you really need the data, or even something like a Garmin that gives you track of like how many calories you're burning, what's your sleep quality. But then once you get that metabolic health, that's when the internal understanding, this internal clock of what makes you feel good really comes into play. So that answer just stood out to both of us. And I think it's a testament to what you guys believe in, where it's like very data-driven company, but there's also like this holistic sense of just trying to help people get healthier through the form of exogenous ketones.
I think about that a lot, the role that data plays in health and wellness these days, where 20 million Americans have some kind of wearable, Apple Watch, Fitbit, Whoop, Aura, continuous glucose monitor. What a decade ago was considered biohacking. It was like, I had it. I was ordering it off of like weird European eBay, like German, whatever, CPG or CGM, like not street legal shit. And now it's like everyone's doing it. It's not even biohacking anymore. It kind of crossed that chasm of it's just normal wellness lifestyle now. And so I think a lot about, well, first of all, that's really cool because people have more access to data. And I think about like, what is the role that people play? Are we just going to have more dashboards, more data, more to a point where it's like not even productive? And I agree with what you're saying, what Lat's saying, which is like, I think that data a lot of times provides the like primer to the pump where let's think about like sleep quality, right? For a lot of people, they observe they're not sleeping great and they start measuring it. And then they go and solve a set of problems, right? They get blackout curtains. They go to bed earlier. They turn off their screen. They get they do like the top 5, 10 things. They start taking a magnesium supplement. They do what they need to do in order to dial in their sleep. And then they're done. Like you kind of graduate off of it after like whatever it is, 60 days, 90 days, you're done. Like you figure out what, like, okay, I was getting a 60 sleep score and now I'm like consistently in the 90s. Do you need to measure your sleep score every day for the rest of your life? Like, no, it's kind of diminishing returns once you get to, I like the way that you said it, stating the way that Lat said it, of like, the data is really helpful directionally getting you towards where you need to be. And then once you feel, oh, that's what it feels like to have high quality sleep, you know what that sweet spot is. And then you have that reference point and you know when you're off of that reference point, you can get back to it. And then you don't need to like consume. There's such a thing as like data porn, right? Where it's like, oh, check me out. I have 26 different like variables floating around on this spreadsheet. It's like, well, that's too much to even track. It's helpful to have like, I see it as like an update to your firmware. You get data for a certain part of time, you focus on sleep, or you focus on metabolic health, or you focus on a specific biomarker that you care about, and you get really good at that. And then you like stop. Like you can turn the page. Maybe you passively track that data, but you can't. I don't think anyone can actually seriously track 26 inputs on like a meaningful way on an ongoing basis.
And then you kind of lose the point of like why you're trying to be healthy in the first place. Like I think so much of being healthy is just like this liberating feeling of not having to feel like, you know, you're you like are dependent on certain things, or like you have cravings that you can't control. Like being healthy is really just this state of like kind of being neutral and really feeling like you can just go and attack every single day with the same level of energy. And when you're tracking like 26 different things, I feel like that kind of like takes away from the power of really just like feeling like you're in control without the need to have something that's just like constantly checking on you.
Yeah, I think it's really well said. Yeah. You want to be in that like intuitive, flowy state.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
No. I was gonna say I feel like we talked a little bit before just about kind of how you started HVMN, but I think the conversation was we were talking about just like the moment, and you were saying how it was really this you looking for like a vacancy in the market, and ketones for me for a while has been this topic that's really curious to me, just because I had a ton of success with the keto diet and know the power of like that feeling when you're actually in ketosis. So for you to identify that as one, just like it seems like you're on trend and like incredibly aware of like where the market is moving, but would love to just kind of understand the background of the company a little bit more and just like how you saw that opportunity. Because to me, it's like, wow, this is like such a no-brainer once you see the product and like actually get to experience it.
It's fun. The two things I obsess over all day are nutrition and great entrepreneurs through history. And I'm trying to be at that Venn diagram of both. You know, it's still day one. It's still, you know, a ton of work out in front of us. The way that I got to this spot was that I got into biohacking, was wearing the CGM, was getting into endurance sports, was tracking a lot of inputs, trying to be take this quantitative engineering systems approach towards my own body, my own health span, my own how I'm feeling day to day. And I got into intermittent fasting, started one of the largest intermittent fasting groups online with my co-founder. big intermittent fasting group in San Francisco. We got a lot of coverage, like early. This was like 2016, 17. When this was like very early. Like we were some of the first people to do like a carnivore diet, and we got like the newspaper would just like show up at our office and like interview. My co-founder was just like eating like raw egg yolk, and it was like wild at the time because no one was really talking about it. We do intermittent fasting. We do the large like breaking of the fast in San Francisco on Tuesday mornings, and we were like Netflix came by and did like a whole special about like what is it going on in intermittent fasting. It was all, and we were the centerpiece of that. And so the point is, we were early on a couple of these big trends that have now really blossomed into like mainstream. And one of the threads I saw through all of these intermittent fasting, low carb diet, endurance sports is that in all of those contexts, your ketones rise. And people really like the way that it feels. People feel really focused when they're fasting. People feel really energetic when they're doing a low carb diet. People feel runner's high when they go hit 11 miles on a weekend. And the common thread through all of that is that your brain is fueling on ketones. Your body is running low on blood glucose, and your body has started to make ketones. Your ketone levels up, and you can measure it. I have like calluses on my fingers, like from the amount of blood ketone. I had to like graduate to my other finger because it was just like too much. And seeing, okay, so it was that moment where the light bulb went off, where my co-founder and I were like, hey, look, if people are jumping through all of these hoops to get their ketones up, why can't you go to the store and buy a shot? Why can't you get 10 grams of ketone just like at the gym, at the grocery store, at the bike shop? And I started looking at it. It was one of those things where like, as an entrepreneur, there's that, Peter Thiel has that quote, like, you want to find something that is really obvious to you, that's a secret to everyone else in the world. Like Mark Zuckerberg thought Facebook would be like, this multi-billion-dollar business that it now is, but he saw that secret when it was like him and a few buddies at Harvard. Like, you want to see like the little secret before everyone else knows it. And even today, like a lot of people I meet are like, what is it? How do you think that Ketone IQ can be as big as Gatorade? And it's like, because in 1965, when Gatorade launched with the Florida Gators, it was smaller than Ketone IQ is today. Like it was just a fundamental secret, but the founders had conviction that, hey, water alone is not as good as water plus electrolytes. I don't care if no one else in the world knows that. Like one by one, brick by brick, we're going to get the message out. And it's like Pandora's box. As the message gets out, it doesn't go back in. It's like people just understand what ketones are. People understand that it's a form of fuel that's not caffeine, it's not sugar, it's just a pure ketone source. I believe in the fundamental truth of what we're doing, and it's just a matter of brick by brick getting the message out there. And it's been interesting because, starting in the very early days, it was my co-founder and I looking at each other, looking at like some science papers where people looked at ketones, exogenous ketones in like a lab bench setting. And you had like Tim Ferriss had like jugs of research chemicals, and he'd be talking about it.
Atia, right? Back in the early days.
Yeah, some of these are just like OG biohacker science guys, and no one had ever done it at scale. So we were trying to figure out, it's like, hey, why is like a lot of people are doing intermittent fasting? A lot of people are having bulletproof coffee, or a lot of people are putting MCT in their coffee to make their, MCT turns into ketones. A lot of people are jumping through all these hoops to get their ketone levels up. You have these like biohackers that are trying research. We were trying research chemicals. You have these like low quantity amounts of ketones out there, and no one's ever like figured out how do you make 100,000 of these? How do you make like actually at scale? How do you make a company? How do you make a brand? How do you actually like commercialize a drinkable ketone? And the first big customer that we got was the DoD. At the time, the product was very expensive. It was $35 a shot. And I always joke, like I could not even afford it, even with my employee discount.
Wow, $35 for the same size as this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it tasted like battery acid. And we got this $6 million contract with the DoD. Pete Pace, the former chair of the Joint Chiefs, is on our board observer. He reported to Bush and Obama, like highest ranking military officer, and I've had the privilege of getting to meet a lot of just awesome, incredible Americans, just some of the highest performing people, just great people in the special forces, and being able to serve and work with that community has been definitely a highlight of my career. It's super fun. It was in this like science fair project mode for several years, where we're like going to these bases, giving lectures, giving talks, doing blood sampling. Tour de France team started using our ketones. Conor McGregor started using it to get his stamina up. Then Jake Paul found out about it, and then my co-founder met Jake Paul, and Jake Paul ended up investing in our business. Like Joe Montana caught wind of it. He invested in our business. So there's like these early signs that even though the product was really expensive, we had some customers. What I think is really important as an entrepreneur is like, your first version, like your first, you ever see those pictures, like the early, like computer the size of a freaking truck?
Yes.
And it's like, well, I can't fit that in my pocket. And that thing cost like $400,000 in 1970. But like you have a customer, someone wants that. Like you have like the version 0 of your product. It's very expensive, but like it kind of works, and you have a customer. And then it's a matter of just chipping away at that. Okay. We then evolved it to a full fermentation process. We're able to get the scale up and the price down considerably to where, hey, now it's just like actually available, like actually can be at a price, and it just worked on the taste a bunch, the formula, got it to a spot where it's actually like commercial ready. So after working with the DoD for several years, brought it to the commercial world, had this massive wait list, had like 34,000 people wait list, 34,000 person wait list, then launched it. And then it's been on market for less than 2 years. But like prior to that, we were working with the DoD for several years.
Wow. It's really special to hear that story. And it actually reminds me of kind of where we're at with Noble in general. I like how you said you were comparing it to Zuckerberg, where it's like you have this vision in your head of what this product can become, but not a lot of people see that vision. It's internal to you, but you know what it can build it out to. But then you start to get these wins along the way, whether it's like, Jake Paul, DoD, you're like the right people like this. And I know we have a shitload of work to do to get it to where it needs to be, but I know that because these people believe in it and I believe in it, I know it can turn it into something. Yeah. Which is really cool to hear that story.
Yeah.
What do you think got the DoD's attention? Like, I feel like that's so interesting that they're like involved and want to actually participate in what you guys are doing.
It costs $1 million to train a Navy SEAL, all in. Just the amount of selection that goes into it. Because for every one Navy SEAL, you have like 5, 10 I don't know the exact stat.
Like an 80% attrition rate.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Yeah. So for every David Goggins, there's like 4 David Noggins. There's a lot of people that don't make the cut, and then of the people that make the cut, it's just like a lot of training, a lot of work, a lot of investment. So anything that you can do to improve the performance, improve the duration of that person's career, it's worth it. So the DoD, I can't take credit for this at all. It's just that I think some of the smart leaders inside of the DoD started realizing more than a decade ago that like, hey, we really need to invest in our people. Like, yeah, we need better, like, hard goods, we better like body armor, better guns, better bullets. And we also need, if we can extend like more soft factors, like the human factors, if we can make people perform better, have people burn out less. Like, it's not good to be just like stemmed up on like 500 milligrams of caffeine every day for your entire life. Like, if we can find alternate ways to get people dialed in cognitively, and physically for long stamina missions, like if we can find other sources of fuel, other ways of improving metabolic health, other ways of performing better in a low oxygen or high stress environment, those are some of the areas that they started getting interested in that we were able to dovetail into, right? So it's not like we came from like a blank sheet of paper. We're like, hey, here's ketones. It was like, there was a little bit of like, we found that there was interest and we could pull together the right kind of contracting groups and get the right sign-offs to make it happen.
Yeah, I remember Jocko saying that when they were deployed in Ramadi, on his belt with his guns, he would have like 3 or 4 Red Bulls just strapped to it, and they were just cranking caffeine because they're just focused on the mission. But if there's a way that you can get a healthier fuel source, I mean, I would have to think that the DoD would be all over that. And I would also have to think for you too, the taste was probably like a big bottleneck or a hurdle that you guys were working to overcome, because I had mentioned Atia before, but he was the first person that I ever had heard the word exogenous ketones from. And his early blog posts were so good. And I think this was like 2013, 2014. He basically documented his experience trying exogenous ketones. And like, I forget, he went off to some shoddy website and ordered it in bulk. And he said the flavor of pure exogenous ketones was the worst thing that he's ever put into his mouth. He described it as being worse than gasoline, but he felt amazing after he took it. But he said he almost like gagged into the toilet afterwards. Yeah. So here you guys are, you're like, I know I have this badass product that's so healthy for people, but now I also have to solve for trying to do this at scale, and taste is unfortunately like a thing that you have to solve for too.
Yeah. I think the word Peter Atia used was Godzilla's breast milk.
Godzilla's breast milk.
Which is iconic.
Godzilla's breast milk might be based though. Some nutrients in there.
Yeah, that's actually good.
Like another product line.
That's actually Lowkey, super good brand name.
We'll separately chat about that.
Yeah. Very memorable. Yeah, that's been a big part of it. Is there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in the process, and it's there's different ways to make a exogenous ketone. There's petrochemical ways, like petroleum, very versatile molecule, as we know. Like you can make just long chains of carbon. You can make anything out of petroleum, basically. Like a lot of the world around us made it petroleum, like stuff you eat, stuff you sit on, stuff you wear. We rotated it to a fermentation process that's fully sustainable, cradle to grave. So all the inputs are plant-based. Everything can be like fully sustainable, and it can be very affordable at scale too. Mm-hmm. It's basically a very high-tech kombucha factory. And that significantly improved the taste. And then also just like further purifying it. It's like, there's a difference between something that's like 99.9% pure versus like 99.99. Like every 9 of precision, it actually makes a difference. And so like, it's like ketones have a weird taste to them, but like the tiniest little imperfection in the early days, like if you're making it lab bench, it's probably like 97% pure, which sounds pretty good, but like that 3%, it's like, that's just like weird burn off, like what the hell, like side chemical that shit, like it's not going to taste good. Whatever state of the art was in 2013 was not like near the level of purity that we have today. It was the giant RAM chip in the back of the U-Haul version of what we have today. And that was always the vision, is like, I mean, there's so many different ways to start a business. There's so many different types of businesses that succeed. But for me, is like, start something really like weird and different and that has a objective truth to it, and then figure out everything else. Like you look at how like Elon Musk is building Tesla. It's like, there should be an electric car. Like that seems like inevitably that will come true one day. Like, so like you plant your flagpole on something that's just like, okay, this needs to exist in the universe. Like this should definitely exist. Let me figure out all the other like supposedly impossible stuff. Cause if the goal is worth doing, you can move mountains. You can hire the smartest people. You can run through a fucking wall. Like you can do incredible stuff if the juice is worth the squeeze. There's actually something I learned like earlier in my career. I worked at Google for a little while, and Larry Page said stuff like that. He's like, basically every problem ends up kind of hard and annoying. So you might as well solve a really hard problem, because you're going to like get to that moment halfway through where enthusiasm is going to wane. It's going to be like 10 p.m. and you're at your computer solo, like clicking on stuff, and like you just have that kind of like moment of truth with yourself, with your team. And if what you're doing is like you're doing like, I don't know, some slide deck presentation to consult for a company that you don't even work at on a problem you don't really care about, it's like who cares? Like you're just gonna like phone it in at a certain point. Versus like if you think what you're doing is gonna change humanity and like make a dent in some global outcome, and you think that way, and then your whole team thinks that way, like you got to bet on missionaries over mercenaries any day. Like if missionary being someone who's like dedicated to a cause, mercenary being someone who's like paid to attack the cause, like missionaries over mercenaries every single day, even for your own self. Like find something that you yourself can be missionary about, for sure.
I love that advice from Larry Page, and you legitimately just took the word right out of my mouth, the missionaries. Just the idea of having people show up to solve the problem on day one, who are of the thinking that they're there because like this is their life's mission. This is something that they'll just be working on, even if it's just them not getting paid for it. It's such a different mindset shift and framework of thinking about work as opposed to someone who's in more of a transactional sense. Like I just show up, do the job, get paid. Like missionaries are going to be there when times get tough. So I think like a product like yours is the perfect example of people who are just like in it. They believe in it so much.
You got to be obsessed. All the great entrepreneurs and their teams around them, they're obsessed because I strongly believe that any problem that you zoom into, it fractals out. Like if you only think about ketones, like we're not launching a ashwagandha gummy next week. Like that ain't we are dead set on ketones. So all of our creative energy goes into ketones. And when you're obsessed with ketones, it's like, it fractals out. You stare, you know what I mean by fractals? Like, like you zoom in and it's still complex. And then you zoom in more and it's still complex.
Man,
there's
more to this.
That inside of ketones, there's so much to do. Like there's so much to continue pushing on every aspect of it, on like the education, on the way that we do branding and marketing, on the way that we improve our supply chain, on the way that we sponsor science. So we put 1% of our top line back into research, at least. Like it's been more than that. It's just like, that's our lifelong commitment, is like putting money back into research. Because there's so much, we're doing a big study on like TBI, the way that traumatic brain injury, the way that ketones interact with the brain in a healthy adult is great. That same mechanism of action of how it provides energy to your brain is really interesting if you've had a concussion or a traumatic brain injury. So there's one study going on. The overall point I was making is that inside, I get so excited talking about it just because inside of ketones, there's so much that fractals out. And one thing I'm always looking for when I'm hiring people is this level of obsession, this level of missionary, this level of inventiveness. It doesn't have to have been on ketones. Like I don't expect if I'm hiring someone like this week that they've already been thinking about ketones for forever. Like that would be, uncanny, I guess. Like that would be, but I'm looking for that level of obsession on like something in their life that they like really like get into it, that it's not a mercenary situation, that it's like that this person is truly obsessed with like their own career, obsessed with just like obsessed. I don't know. It's like a certain like spark. Like you guys are obsessed with what you're doing. There's a certain like way that a person moves in the world that you can tell that they like really care about what they're doing. They care about like thoroughness, getting to the bottom of things. Like their mind, like on the weekend, even when they're not doing the thing, they're still like thinking about the thing.
Yes. It's like this X factor that you really can't show on a resume. It's just a gut check thing that you know in a conversation with someone. And I think you touched upon the most important piece of advice for a founder, where it's like you need this motivational focal point that's so strong that in a day where it's like, I love what I do, but 90% of the tasks to get me to that goal, I actually don't like doing it. But my motivational focal point is so strong that it almost pulls me forward to do those tasks too. I think that's so important. Like we've seen that firsthand. We just hired this amazing account manager who she was fully in the health and wellness space, but she had never worked a corporate type job before. And Harry and I were like, I think she has like this raw passion and desire where if we put her in this role, she would do an amazing job. And she's like a month into it and absolutely killing it and is doing a way better job than either of us could ever do in that role. So it's like you touched on it, and I'm like, we're directly experiencing that right now with our own business too.
Yeah, it's really cool to see too, because I think you see that a lot of times with people who are maybe outside of the industry that like, I don't know, for that exact role that you're hiring, it's like, or that you're just mentioning that like someone who's done that for 30 years, maybe they have this spark, but maybe they actually have less of the spark. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't want to like, paint with too wide of a stroke, because there's a lot of people at different stages of their career in the industry. But the point is that I have found that general IQ and caring solves for so much, that like just about any domain, like learning how retail stores work. And I don't know. Yeah. You got KeHE and you got UNFI. Those are the two big ones that go to like Sprouts and Whole Foods. Like I just told you that, like I wasn't born knowing that. No one was born knowing that. If you're just like care and you ask questions and you're that type of person that gets to the bottom of things, like I would take that person. I would put my money on that person all day ahead of the like, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years and I know the name of all the distributors, this is that. It's like, well, like what? I think a team can have both, but I would say like, I think you can go a long way in life with just generally high intelligence, caring people, and that like the domains. My theory of like domains is like everything. There's only so many there's a finite set of logical relationships that exist in the universe. Mm-hmm. A supply chain versus like the Krebs cycle versus anything else. Like all you're doing is swapping around nouns, right? It's like you have some flowchart diagram, like A causes B or C is a component of D, E, and F. Like there's only so many logical relationships that exist in the universe. And when you go from like supply chain to biochemistry to org chart management, like it's all just the same set of logical relationships and you're swapping out nouns.
Interesting.
And so a smart person, I think, is good at taking those patterns from one area to another. And like you drop a smart, I don't know, the guy who started Vital Proteins was like a NASA rocket scientist. Yeah. Kurt. And he like, I think if you get to a certain level at NASA, I think you can figure out how grocery stores work.
Definitely.
You know, or like you can hire that person. I don't want to be too like arrogant on the point on like, there is something for, you know, understanding a given vertical. But I think that as a leader, if you're good at the high level pattern matching, you can make a lot of dent in the world by just caring, asking questions, hiring industry experts, like listening to them, getting advice. I think that's like a good one is like getting advice, getting advisors who maybe have those many years of experience.
Yes.
But that like, sometimes I think the people that are full throttle on it inside of the company can be, like newer. And then you have like the phone a friend. If you ever, hey, how do I get into this XYZ, how do I solve XYZ problem?
Yeah. The pattern recognition is such an interesting point. I feel like a lot of people would benefit from just thinking about, you know, things in that way where, you know, you try to contextualize a new problem from something that you've solved in the past. I think like that's where people who are true masters at something, they have a huge leg up on most people because they have understood how to master something before, so they can go into another situation and teach themselves something. And like you talking about hiring people who care about stuff, like that's where true innovation actually happens. You hire someone who knows the questions to ask, understands relationships in that way, and then they can actually think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Like from this like old problem that they've solved.
Yeah, it's so true. I heard this recently that really stuck with me is this idea of agency. The idea, like the ability to get stuff done. It's that, okay, imagine you're in a prison, in a developing world prison cell. Who do you call? And like think about that in your mind. Whoever that person you call is the highest agency person you know.
Yeah.
And that's what you ultimately want to look for on your team. Any team you're going to join or anyone that you're hiring on your team is agency. I think if you had to really put a word on it, it's like who just gets it done. Like you drop into some random situation because life has a lot of randomness to it. You drop into a random situation, like who can figure it out, get the lay of the land, you know, tap in experts as needed, and just piece it together and like match patterns for what they've seen before and get it done, not ask too much permission and just like go. It's just a certain way of being. And it's something that I look for. I think it's just like a certain vibration that people have. It's like, okay, this person, like, different people might be different levels of good at it, but like, I feel like I can tell pretty quickly when I meet someone, like, do they even care? Are they even trying to get good at agency? Like, are they even like, I don't know. It's like something in the eyes or something in the way that someone thinks about problems or answers questions. It's like, are they like, is the key fully like clicking in the ignition? Like, I don't know. There's just something there. Like, does this person want to go all the way or do they get kind of tired if you ask? Cause I don't know about you guys. Like I'll ask like 16 different questions about your protein or your podcast. Like I'll just, and like, with you guys, like you get more excited the more we talk about it. It's like, oh, we're more into it. And each question leads to 3 other questions. Like, all right, cool. Other people like you start asking questions about, it's like they want to change the topic. It's like, do you ever meet someone at, like you're talking to someone about, you almost say there's two types of people where like some people you ask, oh, what's your job? And they want to change the subject right away. It's like, I do that.
It's like,
yeah, it's let's talk about something. Let's talk about Netflix.
Yeah.
Let's talk about,
yeah.
Like, oh, it's nothing. Blah, blah, blah. Other people, you talk about their job and it's like, oh, like,
yeah,
it's super passionate. It's like, oh, okay, we're taking on the like food industrial system. Like, where do I start? Like, there's this problem, there's my personal story, there's all these other people I've met, there's my specific approach. So I'm today taking on it. There's how do we think that we're going to change the culture? Where do we think this is going? Like, how do we think that, we're going to finance this thing? Like, there's 16 different ways, and each one of those leads to like 3 other questions, right? There's a certain type of person that you meet where you ask them 1, 2, 3 questions, and like a lot more questions emerge, and then like the energy builds. It's like that feeling like after an hour of talking to someone, are you like more excited or less excited? That's something I pay a lot of attention to, is like which way the energy went over a conversation. Like, am I excited or am I like done?
Yeah. I've heard someone say before, like someone's personal brand is the feeling that you get from that person after they leave the room afterwards. And I've been trying to pay a lot more attention to that too. And Harry and I both have, of like the feeling of, hey, you get this morning coffee with someone. It's such a good conversation. You guys click, they're helping you, you're helping them. And you're like, I wish I could start off every single day with that person. It's like, that's who you should be spending most of your time with, or trying to build a business with, or collaborate with, or more people like that versus the people that are sucking energy from you.
Totally. And at the end of the day, all that's really in control is actually to be that person.
Yeah.
And then you'll, by power of attraction, like you'll get more of those people around you.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get too esoteric, but you mentioned something how like you can let's go. You can tell that person has that characteristic based on the eyes. And Twitter is amazing. You see the coolest threads and the wackiest threads. But I remember someone did a thread on, like, he broke down a bunch of these quarterbacks and showed you the profile of their eyes, like in deep moments of competition. So like Tom Brady during competition, his eyes like narrow and his eyebrows kind of go down a little bit, versus like quarterbacks that were in that same moment that kind of choked, and they all have wider eyes. So it was interesting how like all the best quarterbacks or athletes had like this very particular eye profile in that deep moment of competition versus the guys that choked. So not exactly what you were saying, but I think you can learn from people's eyes and just their general demeanor and their energy and stuff like that.
Yeah, dial in, you just drop in. Yeah. And I think that's why I think so many people that are high performing in work, they also are high performing in athletics in their everyday life, because you almost want more sets and reps. Like, why did I run 20 miles yesterday? Like, no one cares, but I care, because it's like that feeling at mile 15, 16, 17, when it's like, yo, we're holding the pace. You just like drop in. And it's just, for me, it's like free sets and reps. Like, if I can hold on to my pace at that, and then I run again today and I run again tomorrow. I get in that pocket as much as I can, because free practice. Because like the running it matters, but it doesn't really matter. What matters to me is really like business and work. I just know, though, I have this unfair advantage if I'm negotiating, if I'm in like talking to an investor, talking to whatever, like in like high stakes conversation at work. It's like I've already been in that like zone 3 times this week.
Right.
And I like drop myself into that zone, and so I'm ready. Like I got some free sets and reps, and I'm not saying this out of me. It's like, I think a lot of people who are trying to do really well in their career and build something interesting, they like sign up for free for high rocks, ultra marathons, CrossFit. Like, they sign up for that stuff because they just want to get more sets and reps of that. Like the exact moment that you felt, that like moment where like you're just in the pocket and you're testing your own mettle, and you're actually delivering, and you're proving yourself, and you're building that confidence, and you're just performing under pressure, and you want to like get more sets and reps on that, so that like when the real pressure happens, it's nothing. Like, you're used to it already.
Oh, it's such an awesome point. I had such a good conversation this morning around the idea of like integrating all the different areas of your life, and to the point where, you show up in every area of your life the same way. So like it's what you're talking about with fitness. Like, you approach fitness to the level of excellence that you approach your business. So you just, like, Michael Brandt is who Michael Brandt says he is. Like, he shows up in every area of life the way that you would expect him to. I think that's such an important point for people to hear. It's like, I just know for myself, like, if I try to hold myself to the standard of like every area of life, relationships, business, finances, like if stuff's slipping in those parts and you're not holding yourself to that same level of integrity, like in one area, you open yourself up to that sliding in other areas. And I resonate with the idea of like that 20-mile run just being like you paying the ante to being the best version of yourself across the board.
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea of paying the ante, and yeah, everything is everything.
Yeah.
The way that you do anything is the way you do everything. I remember one thing that clicked for me in my dating life. I'm now happily married, have a daughter. One thing that clicked for me big time in my like early 20s was that I switched from like, you know, I would like go out with the guys, or I'd try to like, oh, that girl's cute. Like, let me like turn on game. Let me go like say, blah, blah, blah. And what clicked for me was just like not doing that anymore. Just realizing that like game is life. Like if you just live a life where you're just dope and interesting, you just think what you're doing is dope. Like, and there's no switch to flip. There's no like, oh, that girl's cute. Let me go like it's like, no, just like by your way of being, you just attract who you're going to attract. And the way that you live your life is already attractive. It's not some switch you have to flip on. You don't have to go say the man. You just walk up to someone you think is attractive and say like, how's it going? Like, what did you order the tacos? How do you like the tacos? Like, you just like say it, but you say it in a way that's like coming from you, of like, you're an interesting person that just ran 20 miles yesterday and is running a business, and like you have things to talk about, and you can be, you're not having to turn anything on because like you're just in this mode of crushing it. That's like the dream state, is just to like constantly be in a mode of excellence. And it's not this like, oh, I gotta turn it on for this meeting. Oh, this person's like a VIP. Oh, I gotta blah, blah, blah. It's like, I mean, in business world, it's like, I'm always explaining Ketone IQ to the person next to me on the airplane, my Uber driver, whatever. So like when I'm sitting next to Mark Cuban, when that happens, it's like the same thing. I don't have to like turn it on for this one matters. It's just like, you want to be in this constant flow. That's why I tell myself is like, be in this constant flow of like always on, always in that mode of excellence. Cause like, I don't think you want to have to like turn it on ever for anyone. I think you want to like improve your baseline.
Yeah, there really is this big correlation between dating and just building a successful business or being a successful human being in general, where it's like, there's no pickup line, there's no shortcut or hack. It's like you said, you do difficult things, you build this incredible confidence, and you almost have like an aura about yourself that women or anyone just pick up on. And there's no like needing to say the perfect thing. It's just, you become a great human being, and she will recognize that. And then you know, she's attracted to you because of that, because of the body of work that you've built for yourself.
I call it no game game.
No game game. I like that. Yeah.
I need to write a book on that.
Yeah. Where you just like turn off game. You just say, like, you almost ask the most like banal question or statement or whatever. Like, I heard the tacos here are really good. Whatever. Like, you just say like the most, and you just see it. Like, it's if you're Joe Burrow and you're just like talking to a young lady, like, you just say it doesn't matter what Joe Burrow says. Yeah. Like, he could just say like, that's a cool shirt.
Yeah.
You know, it could be the most whatever. And it's like, if you put yourself in those same shoes, like, it's almost like by even trying to say something super clever, super pick up, super blah, 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 like, you're playing yourself because you're like trying hard and you're like putting on a show. It's like the most calm, relaxed thing to do is just like talk to someone like it's your cousin or whatever. Just say something regular.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do difficult things too, I feel like, especially with dating, you just build this genuine confidence where you're just very direct and you just let her know what you're actually feeling. Like, you're just like, hey, I think you have a beautiful smile. I'd love to take you out and get to know you better. Like, just very direct, to the point. She knows exactly what you're feeling, what your intentions are. And women respect that a lot versus like trying to kind of like mask what your real intentions are too. But that comes from like building that body of work that gives you the confidence to say those things. Just like with an investor too, I'm sure, right? I'm sure there have been instances where it's like, instead of beating around the bush, you like kind of get directly to the chase and ask them what you want, and they respect that, and they know exactly where your head is at too.
What I say with investors all the time is that it is not my job to persuade you to invest in my business. I don't want to come across as persuading you. My job as CEO is to explain what my business is and isn't, and lead you to making a high quality decision on if you want to get involved.
I love that.
And it comes across, and look, it's not like 100% yes rate. I'm not going to lie. It's like people say no, like, especially in this economy, it's like there's not just like random money splashing around, but I get a lot of yeses too. And I think at the end of the day, people respect it, and it lets me really push, because it's like, all right, like I need a decision. Like I'm available. My team's available. Like I want to get a decision by next Friday.
Right.
What can I do to lead you to a high quality decision? Like, I got shit to do. You got shit to do. Like, let's not belabor this. It's not like, are you writing checks? Like, because investors usually have investors.
Yep.
Almost always. Every VC has their LPs, right? Like, hey, I have how big is your fund? Oh, I got a $50 million fund. That means they probably have LPs they have 5 LPs who have put $10 million in their fund.
Yep.
And have said, hey, go invest this into a bunch of Series A or seed startup companies. And so you can just ask, how big is your fund? Are you writing checks? Are you still fundraising your fund?
Yeah.
Like, are you able to do a deal? Like, what is your process? You can ask these questions that are just very, very direct to them. Like, hey, it's nice to get to know you, but I'm here to like do a deal or not.
Yeah.
And again, you do it in like a not thirsty way, which is just like, I want to communicate with my business. Your job as an investor is to deploy capital. If you don't invest in anything, you're not doing your job. All your LPs are going to be disappointed because they give you money to deploy. If you don't deploy it, you're not an investor.
Right.
If you deploy in the wrong things, that's also not good. But like, you need to come to a decision on what you're investing in. I need to capitalize my business. I need to we need to see if the puzzle pieces go together here or not. So let's sit down at the puzzle and see if the pieces go together. And if they do, that's awesome. And if they don't, that's also awesome. Let's not spend forever on it. That's always my frame with fundraising. Like, try to keep it like, if with any given investor, like try to keep it like pretty tight. Like we should be able to know if we want to work together within like 2 weeks, a month, like of, kind of back and forth. And it should feel like the energy is building. We should really, and I'm always having that meta conversation. Where are we at in the process? Like, how are you feeling? Has your team all tried the product? Are they excited? Like, I always like, is it building? Like, are we building this to like an actual conclusive answer or not? And like, again, I'm not trying to persuade. I'm trying to make good use of your time, make good use of my time. Yeah. If it's a no, I don't care. If it's a yes, great. Like, let's just get to the bottom of it. Yeah. Yeah.
The idea of leading into those conversations with fluff and like trying to actually almost use like smoke and it's not necessarily everyone's intentions to use smoke and mirrors, but I feel like it's a lot of people who are maybe greener around the ears, their default mode is to like put on a little bit more of a show. It's such a good point for any young entrepreneur. Like the truth is, like, people just want to do deals or not do deals. Show up without the fluff, and just like, if you could present your business on one piece of paper, on one Post-it note, that's probably best case scenario.
Yeah. And a reality out there is that unfortunately a lot of investors will waste your time. They just will, not necessarily out of malice, like they're not trying to waste your time, but they'll just ask you questions all day. Yeah. Or sometimes it depends on the group, but sometimes there'll be more like junior people there. They don't have decision-making power. So they're just they'll just like ask you questions about your business, but they're not but you can ask that person, like, who's your decision maker? Who's your investment committee? That's a magic word. Who's your IC, if you want to look really cool? Like, who's your IC? Like, what's the decision? When do you guys meet? Right. A lot of ICs meet on like Monday, Tuesday. When's your next IC meeting? Is this deal going up in front of your IC on the next review? Is it not? What can we do to get it there? Okay, how can I help you make that go really well? Because you're going to look smart if it succeeds on IC. If you brought in a deal, if you source that, if you're saying to the junior person at the group, like, you sourced a deal that goes up to IC and ends up getting investment. Like, how do I help you look like you're a good junior investor? Like, how do we get to a conclusion? That's what I'm always pushing. Like, because you can ask me all day about what's the TAM, what's the total addressable market for ketones, or how do you make your ketone? How's this? What's your retention? It's like, someone can ask you questions all day without, again, I don't want to come across as like, I don't think anyone's trying to be like malice or like actively waste time, but like, people can ask you a lot of questions without it going anywhere. You're just kind of treading water, and your job as an entrepreneur is like force a decision, like be polite about it. Like you don't, but make sure it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. This confidence and directness that you have, I'm just curious if it's something that you've always had since you started HVMN, or if it's something that you've cultivated. And the reason why I say that is it's very intimidating for new founders that have never raised capital before to go out and have these conversations. They put a lot of pressure on themselves. As Harry mentioned, they're kind of putting on the dog and pony show, but not being direct. And I'm just curious, do you think that's something you're innately born with, or is it something that's just come from experience?
I think it's learned for most people. I think some people learn it earlier in life or later in life. I would say for me, I've gotten better at it over time, like for sure. I think there's been times in my life where I had a meeting and it's like, oh, I wish I should have said this. Like, I've never left a meeting being like, oh, I regret saying X. I think it's happened so rarely. I think by and large, the regrets I've had are like, oh, I wish I'd had that clap back. I wish, I wish like I'd pushed it harder. I don't really know where it stands with that. I just spent an hour with that person. I don't know where the hell we actually stand. Are they investing or not investing? Or what's the next like decision point here? Like we had a good conversation, but then what? Like I got to write them a follow-up email. Like I should have just asked them. Damn it. I should have just asked them in the moment. So I'm always dialing towards more direct. Like how do I just get more to the bone of what I'm trying to do, what they're trying to do? And a lot of it's just, I don't even care what they're trying to do. It's what I'm trying to do. The best thing that you can do is like fly your flag for what you're trying to do in life and in your business in particular. Hey, this is the plan. This is what the business is doing. You know, if you are fundraising, it's like, okay, here's the capital that we need to go and do X. Like, shit or get off the pot, sir, ma'am. Like this is what we're gonna do. Advice I've heard that I think is 100% true is that founders lead the process. It's not investor led. Like investment is founder led. It's founders saying like, here's the program. Here's, we're bringing in $1 million, $10 million of capital. We're going to do X, Y, and Z with it. We're getting these, we're closing by this date. Like boom, boom, boom. Like the founder is driving the process and you're inviting investors to come along. You're going to make them a lot of money. If things go well, like you're going to make them a lot of money. Again, it's their job to deploy capital and to invest. Like you're helping them out. And it's very like no investor is going to be like hold your hand and walk you through the process of them writing you a check. It's going to be the opposite. It's going to be you saying, here's what I'm doing. Hey, and like you can always, there's something to be said for, in a tasteful way, like letting people know that you're talking to other people. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm running a process. I'm only letting in this much capital. There's going to be a lead that's going to take up most of it. I'm talking to other people. So I'm really looking for a decision from you sooner rather than later, or, give a specific date, like giving a specific time box to things, letting people know, that you're talking to other people, that you're live, like someone's going to take this down and I'm running a process and I'm going to get someone in. I think like founder-led process, super important.
Yeah, it's funny because you're a computer science guy, but this like balance between being direct and not overly aggressive is almost like an art that a lot of people struggle with too, right?
Yeah. I'd almost rather be overly aggressive.
Me too.
If you had to pick an error, like because I might be wrong on this one, I might not. I don't know. I just think like most great entrepreneurs kind of had a reputation for being a little bit like sharp elbows, right? Like
bombastic in some ways.
Yeah. Like you don't really hear a lot about the like wallflower who like gets extremely successful. I think you kind of jam it in. Like, I don't know, like Steve Jobs is like jammed it in with like getting, I don't know, when he launched iTunes, it was the first ever digital service that had like multiple different record labels participating in it. And he just like jam. Like Jeff Bezos just like getting all the book publishers on his platform, just like push, like, yo, we're selling books. We're getting everyone in America is going to be buying books on my website. Like, do you want in or not? Like, you kind of like, like drive it. I guess in business prefer to go towards very literal, just like let people know what the transaction is or isn't. And like, if people don't need, it doesn't need to be emotional. It's just like your job, I think, is to convey clarity on what you're doing. And then people can know if they want to buy a ticket to ride or not.
Yeah. Harry and I have a very small version of the story that you're saying. You know, we were talking about Khalil. Khalil was our third or fourth investor in Noble. And Sun Life was the first smoothie shop we went into when we went into Austin. And as soon as we were starting to think about Noble, we were like, oh, bowls and smoothies with Noble would absolutely crush. And we'd heard a lot of really good things about Khalil, and we were like, we know there's an opportunity here. And in the beginning, he can be a tough guy to get a hold of if he doesn't know you. So we had a mutual friend that threw us in a group chat with him. We texted him I think I texted him like 6 times before I finally got an answer from him, because I was like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? He kept pushing it off. And I was eventually like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to send him the Noble website. And then he immediately called me like 10 seconds after that. But it kind of reminds me of what you're saying is, from, I think, our perspective, it was the worst he's going to say is no or fuck off. But if we don't keep pushing, we're never going to get on his radar. So we have to just go for it now, because that's where we're at in this stage of our journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Just get a no. And even a no is really a not now. I've had people say no and then they later say yes. Just all sorts of things in life. Not even just talking about like fundraising, just like life in general. Like a no is just like not now. Yeah.
It's like that partner that doesn't want to work with you. And then he sees like, or her sees like 3 of their other friends that are now working with Ketone IQ. And then they come back around. They're like, hey man, I'd love some product. Can I work a deal out with you? I'm sure you see that happen all the time.
Yeah. It happens 100%. I think one of the best things you can do as not even just founders, just like human, like as a business person, as a human, is like, be gracious. If someone says no, I think it's very effective in your mind to just translate that. Google translate that in your brain to, they just said not now. Like, don't be salty. Don't be mad. They just don't understand it well enough yet. That's it. And that's on you. Actually, like maybe the product or whatever you're pitching to that person, like maybe you didn't explain it well enough. Maybe you explained it great, but human psychology, people need to maybe hear about it like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Maybe to your point, like it needs to have some more social proof. They need to hear about it more from like other people trusting it. Like they don't want to be risking their whole career and everything on your thing, like that they just heard about, that you just like, maybe you gave a great pitch, but like this is the first time I ever heard about this. I don't know if I'm ready to like commit to this. So just like, if someone says no, just like take it as not now, take it graciously. And then like, cause you like leave that door open to come back around in 6 months. Like, look, I totally understand. It didn't make sense 6 months ago. And like, what do you think now? Or like leave it open for them to come back to you too, without it having to be a weird ego thing where like, they said no and then you got pissed or you were salty and then it's weird and it's like, oh fuck, I don't even want to work with that person. Like, just like, okay, cool. Like, appreciate you taking a look. Like, let me know if things change here. Like, we're always looking for great partners. Right? Yeah.
It's such a valuable life skill to learn. Like pulling yourself out of the moment, of like the emotional reaction of being upset that you got a no. Yeah. And being able to think long-term enough to be like, well, maybe they just didn't fully understand the pitch then in that moment, and I'll revisit it. It's so strong. I think about it a lot that like being a CEO or a founder, or anything, any role in life, it's performance art. Mm-hmm. It's that you dropped into the role of doing it, and you need to do it as best as possible. Like if you're a basketball player, I don't know, if I was I'm 5'5" Jewish guy, like I'm not in the NBA, but if I'm dropped into like NBA body and I'm in the NBA, like, okay, your job is to like dunk the ball, make buckets, like let's go, like whatever your role is, do the best possible thing you can at it, but also don't take it too personally. Like take it personally, but not personally. I take it personally in the sense that like any role that I were to do in life, I would want to crush at. Yeah. But I'm not going to take it overly personally if there's some difficulties or obstacles, because like freaking everyone has obstacles. Like, I don't know, you're some mom crossing the Oregon Trail 150 years ago. That shit's hard. Yeah. Like, are you going to cry about it, or are you going to just like pack the wagon? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a role. Being a CEO of a startup in 2023 is a role. Like, being like, it's all a role. Like, being and be good at the role. But like, I think there's a dance to it all where like, I listen a lot to this philosopher Ram Dass. I don't know if you know this guy. He's like big guy in like the 60s, 70s, has a lot of lectures. He has this it's like when you're playing tennis with someone, like you want to crush them, but you also like have to love them, because like without that other person, there is no match. There is no tennis game. Like, it's a dance. Like you
you are on both sides of the court at the same time in a way. Like you're playing tennis just as hard as they're playing tennis. Like you could just as easily be them. They could be you. Or like if you're at the airport and you're going through security, like you could be like, you know, oh, you get like randomly selected. Like that always sucks, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, the person's randomly, the TSA person, imagine what it's like being them. Like they're just doing their job. They're just doing their dance. They're just in a role. They're just in their performance art. Like they need to do certain things. They got to put food on the table for their family. Like they got to do the whatever wand, like swab your iPhone, whatever the hell they got to do. Like they're not trying, like 99 out of 100 times, they're not trying to like mess up your day. Like it's just a dance. They're doing the best they can at their role. Yeah. You trying to get on your airplane. You're doing the best that you can. And you can choose to see friction on that or not friction on that. You can just like be inside of your role, trying to be as best as possible without being in conflict and like locking horns with the world around you.
Yeah. I like that. It, like almost loving the competition. Like with you, I think you referenced tennis. It's like there's no Federer without Nadal, without Djokovic. Like the fact that we had all the big three in the same era. It's like they all pushed each other to that level and they love each other because of that too. And I think the mental reframe from a business owner's perspective is like, for us, okay, we try and reach out to this big podcast guest. They say no. Instead of beating yourself up or getting pissed at the other person, it's like, no, maybe we're just a little bit too small right now. Maybe we have some more growing to do, but it's going to be badass when we get that person back on. It's easier said than done, but that mental reframe, anyone can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all good. It's all love. Like you say no to stuff too. You know what I mean?
100%.
And it's just like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, I think that's very gracious. Like we're not big enough yet. Right. Like we'll get there. Yeah. Like, okay, back to work. Like, what are you going to do about at the end of the day? What are you going to, all it is get back to work. Yeah. You can cry first and be mad and go whatever, punch sand or not, or just like let it roll off you. And just, what are you going to literally, what are you going to do? That person said no. Yeah. What are you going to do? Like all you can do is increase your stock price, increase your follower count, get back to work and then try to land the plane in 6 months. It's literally all you can do. And the sooner that you realize that, the quicker that, and the more healthy that your relationship is with rejection, the more you're like, okay, that happened, like back to work, like back to what I was already going to do anyway, which is build my business. Like, yeah.
I feel like being baseball players, ex-baseball players, like that feeling of rejection is just baked into you. Like you just fail so much.
Man, baseball is hard.
It's incredible. The sport just teaches you how to like build confidence.
What's something that people don't know about baseball or mindset people don't have from baseball? Like, cause to me it's very different from a lot of other sports where like, you're like, if you're batting 300, you're pretty freaking good. Right. Yeah. Like but you're still missing 70% of the time versus like, I don't miss 70% of my runs or something. Like a lot of other sports, you're not missing 70% of your free throws. Like what's a mindset from baseball that maybe a lot of people don't have?
One thing that comes to mind is I don't think people really appreciate how much of the game is out of your control in a lot of senses. Like you can do everything correctly and still just have an off day. Like if you're in the field in like right field, ball could just like not get hit to you all game. Mm-hmm. Or you could show up and just get walked like 3 times and you're just completely eliminated from the outcome of that game almost. So it teaches you a way of just like looking at things from all directions, like really analyzing like, okay, like when I do get a chance and an opportunity, I need to make the most of it. So it teaches you a level of preparation. I think maybe other sports you can kind of like get away with or like rely on teammates to like overcome some of those lack of preparation. Like I think about football, like every play, everyone knows exactly kind of like what their next 2 or 3 steps are going to be. Baseball, the ball could just not get hit to you for, games at a time,
Yeah. You get the immediate shot at redemption in almost every other sport. In baseball, it's like if you get up to bat 4 times, that's a really good game. Or like you might be a relief pitcher and then you fuck up that one game and then your coach doesn't put you in for another 2 weeks or something like that. So I think learning how to not have that immediate redemption and be really locked in the present moment is huge, like Harry mentioned. And I think you mentioned it too, of like actually embodying what it means to fail 7 out of 10 times, and that's considered a really good thing. I think that's why so many baseball players do well in sales roles, is because they're so used to this mindset of like 7 out of every 10 times I'm going to fail, which is very comparable to outbound sales, where it's like you might be just cranking through that list and most people say no, but then you get a few people to say yes, which are the big wins that make all the difference. I think that's huge. And I think even from a pitching perspective, it's really interesting. You'll have these moments where you throw the best pregame bullpen of your life, and then you get on the mound in the game and you just don't have what you just had 10 minutes ago. That's what Roger Clemens said, is he said the majority of his appearances, like he just didn't have his best stuff. And now he's like, all right, how do I mentally rewire and just deal with the best I've got on this day?
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, one thing with baseball too is it's so deliberate that you can like track every little progression of the game through one like little node of action. Whereas like football, there's a lot of randomness. Baseball, it's like, you know, guy throws ball, guy hits ball, guy fields ball. Like there's all these different moments in the game that you can trace it back to. So when you do get down to like the last inning, last out, last batter up to the plate, your game is tied or you're down by 1. The game's on this guy's shoulder.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just such an interesting game the way it's set up that it teaches you a lot of mental alchemy, I think, at a pretty young age.
The fact that you have to be so prepared in the face of seriously high risk of failure that's not your fault, is endemic to the sport, I think is super powerful. And you just have to be cool with it. Like you're 100% ready to field the ball for successive games of like the ball not getting hit to you, or you're ready to like smack a what do you call it, go yard?
Yeah.
And then like you get walked 3 times in a row. Like how? Or like how, you just keep showing up. I think it's right in most other sports. And then tennis, you mess up the point. Like your next point of redemption is the next point. Like you can redeem yourself. In baseball, it's like, okay, well, I had a crappy at bat, or I got walked, or like something out of my control. Like maybe you're not at bat for like an hour, or like until the next game, or till whatever. Like there's some you're off pitching, you get taken off for 2 weeks.
You have to sit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah, the UFC is really the only other comparable thing of like, I mean, there have been fighters that have literally, they fought maybe like 3 or 4 times. They lost all those fights. That could be over the course of like 3 years. Imagine going 3 years without a win, what that probably does to you mentally. It's pretty incredible. So with you being a computer science guy, were you Moneyball guy too? Did you dig into that at all? Did you like that?
I know the Moneyball, like the movie. Yeah.
You're just like the mindset around like sabermetrics and all that kind of stuff. I was just curious if you ever dug into that at all.
I always talk about Moneyball as an analogy for a lot of things in life, where right, the whole premise of Moneyball is like they outsmarted the game. The Oakland A's, like they came in like second, right? They like made it to the World Series.
Yeah, I think it was like was it ALCS or something like that? They made it to like this. They were just below making it to the World Series.
Okay. But they'd come from like absolute bottom.
Yes, their payroll was abysmally low.
So they looked for like the Moneyball take of like, okay, who do we get that's like there's arbitrage opportunity where like we're not going to pay top dollar, but we're going to get someone who's like good for the price. Yeah. Pay attention. I think you got to be that way as a startup, because like you're not going to be able to hire the like $300,000 a year like sales exec who can do XYZ. Like you're going to have to find that person who can like cover the difference if for like a third of the salary or something, or even for yourself, right? Like you're going to be, you have to like believe in Moneyball of yourself too, that like you're able to cover that delta that you might not on paper have, but like you're betting on yourself to have. I'm trying to think some interesting examples on it. Like I mean it's true for a lot in business that like we hire a lot of people all over the world, like internationally, is different salary arbitrage opportunities, where I think a lot of people want to only hire people that like look exactly like them, but you can find like great people all over the world, like great software developers, great like finance people, bookkeepers, like great people all levels, like great partner coordinators, like people of all different trades, like all over the world. And it feels like Moneyball, but it's not. I mean, it's almost not even Moneyball, because I think people like aren't even worse.
Yeah.
Like internationally, I think it's just like it is a different. There's different salary bands all over the world.
Definitely.
And I think you can like stitch together like super high output team by being willing to just like recognize that great talent is global. Yeah.
I love that.
Are there any moments throughout your career, whether it was at Google or starting HVMN, that you look at as kind of just those turning point moments? Maybe it was like, you were at the bottom of the barrel, just like, oh man, like what am I doing here? I'm sure you have plenty of those, but any moments that stand out to you as you just overcoming those hard days?
Yeah, I think, any founders ever like worked a trade show? Like, I know you guys have.
Grindy.
Yeah, the set feel, but in like true early days, I'm like where you're the one that's like buying the ticket, like finagling what booth you're going to be at, like schlepping all the stuff in, like, exactly what I'm talking about, right? And you're just like there the whole time, like explaining your product till your voice is hoarse, just like explaining to everyone, grabbing, like it's a slow day. You're like grabbing people as they walk by, right? Like, and you're just like tired by the end of it. And then you gotta like pack up, go home, do it again the next day. Like I'd say trade show is like I think it's, you definitely forge some iron in a trade show situation. I think that's where like, if you can survive those, I think you probably have a good amount of metal that it takes to be a founder. What are other moments? I think like it's always interesting, like when you launch a product, like, because I've been doing entrepreneurship for a while, like even prior Ketone IQ is like had other products in the like nootropic space, just general health and wellness. And the idea was always to create something that was truly like breakout. So right now, all I do is Ketone IQ, it's 100%, but have had other stuff before that. So I have some experience like launching different other products. It's always interesting how things go like on launch day. Sometimes launch day can be very anticlimactic. Like for my personal experience, like, yeah, when we first launched Ketone IQ, it was like pretty good. But like right now, every day we sell like 5 times more than I did on launch day. Yeah. And it's like, I think sometimes you expect launch day is going to be like going to make or break. And like some advice I've gotten too is like, just relaunch. Yeah. Like launch and then launch again and then launch again. It's like launch and then like 2 months, like, I don't know, maybe you get press coverage, maybe you don't. Like just 2 months later, just like relaunch. Hey, that was the pre-sale, or that was the early fan sale. We're really launching now. Or like, oh, we're launching in Sun Life Organics. Like, I don't know, go hit up all the newspapers that didn't cover you the first time. Just like relaunch. I guess word to the wise, and this is to answer your question on like what have been some kind of harder moments, is like, yeah, I think sometimes on launch day it can be really hard because you've been working really hard for months and months, and you get out there and you're like, you want to like sell $100,000 on day one, and like you can have an extremely successful launch month without like launch day can be really like, it's not the like be all end all. Right. And like, I think it sometimes can be demoralizing because it can be like, you can be at the first day of an awesome launch year, but it doesn't feel awesome because you're like, oh man, I only sold like $5,000. Like that's not enough. Like I got to sell a lot more. But like, I don't think any business like exists in just like a single day shot in time. It's like, okay, if you made 5,000 today, can you figure out what worked inside of that? Can you like cultivate that up? Can you like, okay, can you get this time next month? Can you do $6,000 in a day? Because you can do 6 and you can do 7. If you can do 7, you can do 8. Like, how can you get it up from there?
So take the pressure off yourself. You can always relaunch. It's really like a mental construct, right? We were thinking about that even when we launched Noble. It's like you're putting all this pressure on yourself. And we had a good first day, but it's like we've had way bigger days after that. Like, why put all this pressure on yourself for one day when you can always just rebrand, relaunch, recalibrate?
Yeah. And there's also that idea of like, you want to launch with something that's embarrassing. Like if you're not embarrassed, like you waited too long. Like you want to launch with something very scrappy. Like we still have a lot of work left to do on our product too. Like just the abundance. It's like iPhone 2 is very different from iPhone 1. Right, iPhone 3, like it, like especially early days of iPhone is like kept on stair stepping on an innovation. Like iPhone 1 didn't even have an app store. Like like you aggressively stair steps from there and it takes some of the pressure off. Just like launch with like the core kernel of like what you think is going to hit or not. And then like, ideally it doesn't take as long too. Cause if you spend like 5 years working on something, like, you're going to have a lot of just like mental pressure on your launch versus if you launched it in 1 year or 6 months and it was like way less good, but it still had like the core competencies. Cause like for any startup, you're not going to be able to compete on the 100 things that the big companies can do.
Definitely.
The best advice I've ever gotten on startup is like pick like 1 or 2 things and like don't even worry about parity on the other 98 things. Like don't even worry about it. Like pick 1 or 2 things. Like when Snapchat launched, like didn't have all the like fancy, I don't know if you remember, early Snapchat was like kind of ghetto. It was like, it didn't really work.
Wild.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this and being like, how is this going to go anywhere? I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen.
And it did one thing well, which is it let you send disappearing photos. And it didn't have you couldn't message anyone. You couldn't like, you had to like type in someone's username. It didn't really connect with your phone. Like it was just like really janky in many, many ways, but it let you do the one thing that it really needed to let you do. Like early, I don't remember, like early Tinder, everyone thought that was like terrible, like stupid, like it was a bad idea. It's like, this is so simple. It's like it did one thing. It was a bet on this core mechanic of like, do people actually just want a like extremely simplistic dating? Like, I don't know, you go to like match.com or something, you got to answer a freaking college essay about like, what's your star sign and how does that correlate to your college major and minor and blah, blah, and like, what do you want to be in 20 years and what are your kids' names going to be? It's like, yo, chill, just swipe left or right. But like everyone thought, so the bet with Tinder was like that people actually want this like super simple, stupid way of doing it. And it turned out it would be a great bet. So it's like, how long does it take you to launch like Tinder V1 of your product? And I'm sure now, I haven't used this stuff in like a decade. Like, but I'm sure now it's like way more advanced than it was before. But like at day 0, like when you first get your thing out there, it's like, okay, here is our protein powder. It's animal based and it's got organ tissue inside of it. Yes. Cool. Like, did we get that over the fence? Like, okay, do you guys have like a pumpkin spice latte, cookies and cream, blah, blah, blah? Like, not yet, bro. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we're not going to get to like are you in like every grocery store? Can I find it here? Do you have single serve? Do you have a large? You have the 25 serve. Can I get a 75? Can I get it as a pre-made shakeable drink that already is like, it's like, sure, later, but like, let me just get the like basic story out there, which is like, hey, this is what we believe to be a higher quality protein. Like, here's the story. Pumpkin spice latte, ready to drink. We'll be sitting at Starbucks in 3 years, I'm sure. But like, we're not going to do that on day 1. And that's good thinking, right? It's just like, yo, it's like sharpen as an entrepreneur. Like, what's like the 0th order thing of why your company exists? Like, get that out, get that over. Like, people are always asking us, it's like, yo, can you make it this, that? Can you make it taste better? Can you make it this? It's like, yeah, like, don't worry about it. We'll make the large format, the this, the that. We'll fill your Camelback. We'll send pre-fill Camelback, whatever. We'll do it all.
We're
just like,
building it out though.
Exactly. Like, let's like for me as an entrepreneur, I'm also curious to like, look, if like basic ketone doesn't work, if Ketone IQ doesn't work, like the fancy whatever the hell, the pumpkin spice latte version, ready to drink, whatever, isn't going to make any damn sense. Like, the core basic thing needs to work in order for the more advanced stuff to work on top of it. So like, I always say entrepreneurs, like, figure out the like just that 0th order bit of why your company needs to exist and express that. And you should be getting at least, it might be some weird MFers, but like, you should be weird if you're a founder anyway. Like, totally. Like, it might be some weird, it might be like, it might be the people on like subreddit or like weird part of Twitter or weird hashtags on Instagram, but those are your people, first of all. Shout out to like everyone I just mentioned, like the homies.
That we love.
Like shout out to nutrition Twitter, shout out to like subreddit, all this stuff, biohacking, all advanced running, carnivore, just all the cool, like, those are your people, the people that like think way too hard about stuff, that are like, just, those are your early people. And you get those, as you get those people with your like 0th order thing, that's where it really matters. And then you can always build out and make it more like normie pumpkin spice latte I don't want to pick on pumpkin spice latte. I mean, that as an analogy, softening the edges of your brand. Like, start out with something like like weird, polarizing, different, and then get your tribe of weirdos around you. Be chief weirdo. Be chief weirdo of it, and then like soften the edges later. And then for the people that someone's always going to ask you, oh, how's this going to be mainstream? How, like, by definition, anything early that starts off is not mainstream on day one. Like, how's Facebook going to be mainstream? It's just a bunch of like weirdos at Harvard doing it. It's like, how's, is everyone going to want to have organ meat every day? It's like we're getting there. Like, we're working on it. Like, yes, like we will get there.
We will get there. So market to the weirdos first. I love that.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to connect with you more, to learn more about you and what you guys have going on at HVMN?
Yeah, I love hearing from people. I love hearing what people are building, what people are working on personally, biohacking, entrepreneuring, any of that, training for anything. I'm on Instagram at Michael D. Brandt. Same thing on Twitter, Michael D. Brandt. And then our company is at HVMN. It stands for Health Via Modern Nutrition. So check us out at HVMN.
What, before we let you go, what's one thing that you feel like most people get wrong about the Ketone IQ? Like the exogenous ketones.
Number one is people think it a keto diet product. The point of Ketone IQ is that it's pure ketones. It's high performance energy. The energy comes from ketones, not from caffeine, not from sugar, and it can stack on top of any kind of diet. You're just going to immediately have ketones in your system. Your brain's going to start using those ketones. It's going to feel good. You don't have to do keto diet. Keto diet is another way to have your body make ketones. And we are keto diet compatible, but I don't consider us a keto diet company.
I love it.
There's probably a lot of people that think that when you take exogenous ketones, you immediately enter ketosis, right?
Technically, you enter ketosis because ketosis is defined as like the state of elevated ketones.
Yeah.
What you're not entering is ketogenesis. Ketogenesis is your body is making ketones because you're low carbohydrate. You go ketogenic when you're doing a keto diet, or you're starving or fasting, or you're doing a lot of endurance sports, like 3 hours into a run. Like anytime you're drained on carbohydrates, your body will make ketones, will go into ketogenesis. So Ketone IQ doesn't do ketogenesis for you, but it does get you into ketosis. And you can, if you're doing ketogenesis and you drink Ketone IQ, you'll just have more ketones present. And then if you're just a more normal diet and you have Ketone IQ, you'll just have like an amount, like you'll have some calories, some ketones that's fueling your brain on top of whatever else you're eating.
Got it. Well, we might have to rip number 3 after we wrap up recording, but
let's go.
Dude, it's so special to have you in the studio. Like we said, huge fans of what you guys are doing. We're pumped and honored to be able to be working with you guys, and just appreciate that there's founders like you that are so like mission driven, heart and soul focused, and appreciate you for fighting the good fight.
Thanks for taking the time. This is a lot of fun today. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys.